Welcome to Fresh Motivation. Today, we explore Stoic quotes to keep your mind strong. When you arise in the morning, think of what a privilege it is to be alive, to think, to enjoy, to love. In your actions, don't procrastinate. In your conversations, don't confuse. In your thoughts, don't wander. In your soul, don't be passive or aggressive. In your life, don't be all about business. Choose not to be harmed, and you won't feel harmed. Don't feel harmed, and you haven't been. We should not, like sheep, follow the herd of creatures in front of us, making our way where others go, not where we ought to go. To be stoic is not to be emotionless, but to remain unaffected by your emotions. He who fears death will never do anything worthy of a man who is alive. It's time you realize that you have something in you more powerful and miraculous than the things that affect you and make you dance like a puppet. No person has the power to have everything they want, but it is in their power not to want what they don't have, and to cheerfully put to good use what they do have. Life is very short and anxious for those who forget the past, neglect the present, and fear the future. Don't seek for everything to happen as you wish it would, but rather wish that everything happens as it actually will. Then your life will flow well. I begin to speak only when I'm certain what I'll say isn't better left unsaid. Give yourself fully to your endeavors. Decide to construct your character through excellent actions and determine to pay the price of a worthy goal. The trials you encounter will introduce you to your strengths. Just keep in mind, the more we value things outside our control, the less control we have. When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. He has the most who is content with the least. Be stoic. Just do the right thing. Just keep going. My first rule is to keep an untroubled spirit. The second is to look things in the face and know them for what they are. The average man is a conformist, accepting miseries and disasters with the stoicism of a cow standing in the rain. Not to assume it's impossible because you find it hard, but to recognize that if it's humanly possible, you can do it too. Do not indulge in dreams of having what you have not, but reckon up the chief of the blessings you do possess, and then thankfully remember how you would crave for them if they were not yours. This is the mark of perfection of character, to spend each day as if it were your last, without frenzy, laziness, or any pretending. Do not act as if you had 10,000 years to throw away. Death stands at your elbow. Be good for something while you live, and it is in your power. The trials you encounter will introduce you to your strengths. Remain steadfast, and one day you will build something that endures, something worthy of your potential. Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. Keep at it, as a blazing fire takes whatever you throw on it and makes it light and flame. Treat whatever happens as wholly natural, not novel or hard to deal with, but familiar and easily handled. The easiest way to live unhappy and unsatisfied is to hope more often not you'll be disappointed. Thus, your main aim should be to do the best that you can right now, and to expect nothing at all except the way things turn out, despite your best efforts. That's the only path to a peaceful mind. How long will you wait before you demand the best of yourself, and rust season to determine what is best? Do every act of life as if it were your last. The expectations that you bring to your meditation are often the greatest obstacles you will encounter. Be tolerant with others and strict with yourself. Remember that your perception of the world is a reflection of your state of consciousness. The bravest sight in the world is to see a great man struggling against adversity. The greatest blessings of mankind are within us and within our reach. A wise man is contented with his lot, whatever it may be. Happiness isn't outside of us, but actually comes from within. He suffers more than necessary who suffers before it is necessary. When you are offended at any man's fault, turn to yourself and study your own failings. Then you will forget your anger. If anyone tells you that a certain person speaks ill of you, do not make excuses about what is said of you, but answer, "He was ignorant of my other faults, else he would not have mentioned these alone." Begin to begin is half the work, that half still remain again. Begin this, and thou wilt have finished. Whatever happens to you has been waiting to happen since the beginning of time. The twining strands of fate wove both of them together. Don't hope that events will turn out the way you want. Welcome events in whichever way they happen. This is the path to peace. If you are pained by an external thing, it is not this thing that disturbs you, but your own judgment about it, and it is in your power to wipe out this judgment now. Every difficulty in life presents us with an opportunity to turn inward and to invoke our own inner resources. The trials we endure can and should introduce us to our strengths. Prudent people look beyond the incident itself and seek to form the habit of putting it to good use. On the occasion of an accidental event, don't just react in a haphazard fashion. Remember to turn inward and ask what resources you have for dealing with it. Dig deeply. You possess strengths you might not even realize you have. Find the right one. Use it. Define for me now what the indifferents are. Whatever things we cannot control. Tell me the upshot. They are nothing to me. You can discard most of the junk that clutters your mind and clear out space for yourself by comprehending the scale of the world, by contemplating infinite time, by thinking of the speed with which things change. Each part of everything, the narrow space between our birth and death, the infinite time before, the equally unbounded time that followed. Let us meet with bravery, whatever may befall us. Let us never feel a shudder at the thought of being wounded, or being made a prisoner, or of poverty or persecution. Floods will rob us of one thing fire of another. These are conditions of our existence, which we cannot change. What we can do is adopt a noble spirit, such a spirit as befits a good person, so that we may bear up bravely under all that fortune sends us, and bring our wills into tune with nature's. Today I escaped from anxiety, or no, I discarded it, because it was within me, in my own perceptions, not outside. Things stand outside of us, themselves by themselves, neither knowing anything of themselves, nor expressing any judgment. Fate leads the willing and drags along the reluctant. Just as nature takes every obstacle, every impediment, and works around it, turns it to its purposes, incorporates it into itself, so too a rational being can turn each setback into raw material and use it to achieve its goal.
One day after school, I walked by a store in Graz. So I went inside and I looked around, and then I saw a magazine. I saw a bodybuilding magazine that had Reg Park on the cover. Reg Park was then a 3-time Mr. Universe. And I saw him on the big screen as Hercules. I read that and I said to myself, wow, this is the blueprint for my life. This is exactly what I want to do. I want to become a bodybuilding champion just like Reg Park. I want to get into movies just like Reg Park. And I want to make millions of dollars and be rich and famous just like Reg Park. Do you know how great it felt that I knew where I was going? Imagine the majority of people don't know where they're going. I knew where I was going, that I'm going to become this bodybuilding champion just like him. So it was just a question of how do you do it? I was so relieved, because when you have a goal, when you have a vision, everything becomes easy. So people always ask me, when they saw me in the gym in the pumping iron days, they say, why is it that you're working out so hard? 5 hours a day, 6 hours a day, and you have always a smile on your face. And I told people all the time, I said, because to me, I'm shooting for a goal. In front of me is the Mr. Universe title. So every rep that I do gets me closer to accomplishing that goal, to make this goal, this vision turn into reality. Every single set that I do, every repetition, every weight that I lift will get me a step closer to turn this goal into reality. So I couldn't wait to do another 500-pound squat. I couldn't wait to do another 500-pound bench press. I couldn't wait to do another 2,000 reps of sit-ups. I couldn't wait for the next exercise. At the age of 20, I went to London and I won the Mr. Universe contest as the youngest Mr. Universe ever. And it was because I had a goal.
Your probability of finding a successful mate decreases. So we've evolved to have this very, very visually evident eye. And so when we're looking at each other, we're always looking at our eyes, because then we can tell where someone is pointed, and then we can tell what they're up to. And so we're hunting creatures, like we're aiming at a moving target and trying to track it all the time. And so you have to specify your aim, and the Future Authoring Program helps people specify their aim. And it's more than one aim. It's like you have a highest aim, which you might say is to be a good person. And then I would say, well, there's a more elaborated aim than that. It's like you want to be able to constrain malevolence and work to decrease suffering. It's something like that. That's the highest aim. And then you have to decompose that into the things you do each day, so that there's a definite connection between all the micro actions and the macro aim, and then that gives dignity to what you do. I've told people to learn to use a schedule. And people often hate schedules because they act as their own tyrants, right? They say, well, you have to do this unpleasant thing, and then here's another unpleasant thing you have to do, and then you have to do this unpleasant thing, and you do that for about 3 days, and you think, to hell with this, I'm not doing that, and you fall off the wagon. That isn't what you're supposed to do with a schedule. You're supposed to use it to design the days that you would like to have if you were taking care of yourself. And so some of that is, you wake up in the morning and you think, here's 5 things I have to do that if I don't do, my life will be worse. It's like paying bills, for example, or or taking out the garbage. It's like you have to do those because otherwise things degenerate. So you got to put some of those in the schedule because otherwise tomorrow is worse than today, and that's a bad trajectory. But you also want to build in things, you've got to act in some sense like you're dealing with a relatively recalcitrant 9-year-old. It's like, well, here's some things you have to do, but here's some things that if you do, you could reward yourself with. And if you get the balance there between obligation and reward right, then you'll find that you're motivated to do the things. And that's what you want to do. You want to do that so it's sustainable across days and weeks and months. And so you got to treat yourself like a good boss would treat a valued employee, and not like a tyrant would treat a slave, because the slave will rebel. And, people say, well, I don't follow through on my plans. It's like, well, A, they're probably not very well formulated, and maybe you're doing them because of an external moral obligation or something. They're not really your plans, right? And B, you're acting like a tyrant and a slave, and that's a bad relationship to have with yourself. So you want to treat yourself with the same way. That's the golden rule, right? Treat yourself as you would treat other people as you would have them, treat other people as you would like to be treated. It works both ways. You also treat yourself like you treat other people properly. So that's a necessary thing, and often people don't do that. So I teach students, usually for this class it was 3rd and 4th year students, and so this is at the University of Toronto. They're pretty smart kids. It's a hard university to get into, and they're pretty disciplined, and they're actually quite conservative, all things considered.
It's impossible to think of the impossible. It's not possible. So if you think it, it's possible. And if you live your life in possibilities instead of probabilities, you have a greater chance of finding happiness. Seriously, never live your life in probability. Probability is the probability of something happening. There's a statistic attached to a probability. 1 in every 3,000 people do this. That's a probability. A possibility has no stats attached to it. Live your life in possibilities and you're changing. Just change the way you think. It's not what you do for a living. It ain't how much you make. It ain't none of that. It's simply how you think. If you change your thought, you change everything. You change your attitude, you change your altitude. It's all that. It's the law of attraction.
It takes a lot of courage to allow yourself to grow in the face of scrutiny. See, everybody grows. Men, women, faith, bishops, everybody grows. But generally you grow in privacy and your struggles are kept private and you develop and you grow out of it. Hopefully you get out of it before anybody, shoots you down. And it takes a lot of courage to say I'm not there yet. And what I have had the courage over the years to say, I don't know everything. I've been willing to change. I've been willing to evolve. I've been willing to explain myself to people that I didn't even have to respond to. Because in the process of doing that, people begin to understand that you are not who they think you are.
If you want the future to change for you, you've got to change. If you don't change, the next 6 years of your life is going to be just like the last 6. You'll still be behind on your bills. You'll still be behind on your promises. If you will get better, everything will get better for you. What a clear message that was for me. If you'll change your philosophy, you'll change your habits, if you'll change and accept some new disciplines, if you'll turn the corner where you've been in the past, go for a new life for the future, all kinds of remarkable things will happen for you if you will change.
And so most people think their life is dictated by external circumstances. They spend their entire life trying to control what is outside of them. And the fact of the matter is you cannot always control the external factors that are impacting you in your life. The good news is it's the external things in your life that do not dictate the direction or the ultimate destination of your life. That is a fallacy. Listen to me when I tell you this. External circumstances do not dictate the ultimate destination of your life. It's an internal game. You and your faith, your God, are what will control the direction of your life, not the external things that are impacting you all the time. And this identity is that internal thermostat. It sets the temperature, just like a thermostat sitting on the wall, of the conditions of your entire life.
I've been challenged by other people. I've had other people put the mountain in front of me and say, Maxwell, go climb that. And I can tell you right now, I've taken that challenge sometimes and climbed that mountain and felt that I accomplished something great. But let me tell you something about other people's challenges. I may go do that or try to do that, but that may not be where I need to put my time, effort, and energy. Instead of letting other people challenge you, challenge yourself. You know your strengths. You know your dreams. You know your heart. So why don't you sit down and reflect for a moment and ask yourself, what do I really want to accomplish that I haven't accomplished yet? I mean, get on your agenda. Get in your area, in your space, and say, I need to challenge me. When you challenge yourself, you're challenging yourself in an area that is close to your heart and it's who you are. In other words, the closest way to meet a challenge with a great sense of authenticity is to challenge you.
Before I met Mr. Shoaff, I used to cross my fingers and say, I sure hope things will change. I was hoping the government would change and the tax structure would change and that my boss would change and pay me more money. I was hoping that, economics would change and prices would come down. And I was hoping that circumstances would get better. And then I discovered from my teacher that those things are going to continue the same. In fact, all of those things that happen to us is kind of like the wind that blows. And the wind blows on us all. But if you just let the wind blow, I'm telling you, it won't take you where you want to go. All of us must use this wind to take us to the dreams we've got, to the equities we want, to the money we want, to the income we want, and to all the things we want our life to have. This is where we want to go, and we've got a good wind, but we must not leave our future just to the wind, just to the economy, just to the structure of the way things are happening today.
Too often in life, people don't work on changing their identity. They're always working on producing external results. Have you ever known somebody who was wealthy and no longer is? Have you ever known somebody who made a bunch of money and no longer does? How about somebody who was in a great relationship and that relationship no longer exists? How about someone who got in great shape that is no longer in that shape again? If your results begin to exceed your internal thermostat, you will find a way to cool your life back down to what you believe you're worth and you're comfortable at your identity. You'll think it's coincidental. Oh, this accident happened or this appointment canceled, or it's not coincidence. All of those things have happened because you set the thermostat of your life and you've regulated what you're going to get. Isn't that incredible? That you can learn all the talents, the behaviors, the skills, the tactics, all the strategies.
What do I think would be a good New Year's resolution? When I do an assessment and look at my life, I think I have benefited the most from one thing that I do, and that is think strategic. Now, this is a military term. Strategic in the military means big picture. It means long term. Strategic in military terms is where you are going to end up. That's thinking strategic. And the opposite is tactical thinking. Tactical thinking, which again, in the military, means short-term thinking. It means immediate action. It means what's happening right now. So there's a big difference. This is the differentiator for me, is thinking long-term versus thinking short-term. And I believe that this thinking long-term, this thinking strategic, is one of the most, if not the most, important concepts a person can consider in order to improve themselves and improve their lives.
I said, but I could use this arm every day for the rest of my life by the way that I live my life, because I would never let a circumstance or a situation define my life. Adversity is adversity. And the reason I love adversity is because you don't judge a person's character by where they stand when everything is all good. Everybody can stand up and do good when everything is all good. Everybody can smile when it's sunshine. Everybody can do right when everything is going right. Everybody can do that. But everybody can't face opposition, adversity, and challenges and say, I've been waiting on you to come. I'm going to embrace you and I'm going to figure out a way to use you because you would never turn me into a different person. You would never make me a person that people don't recognize before the adversity. You ever seen a person that faced something and you don't even recognize? Like the thing I've learned about life, like everybody is in different businesses, per se. But at the end of the day, we're all in the people's business. And what I mean by that is every day we have a chance to impact somebody's life, right? And I firmly believe with the things we're part of and the things we do, we all have to have a purpose that's a lot greater than ourselves. So when we hit things that we don't understand and that brings us a certain level of discomfort and that hurts us and we just can't pull the grips on it, when we have to encounter things like that, we have to step back and we have to figure out, how can I use it? And a lot of times as people, like naturally people are selfish. Right? And what I mean by that is they approach situations and they say, what can I extract from this situation and how can it benefit me? But the moment an individual shifts their perspective and shift their mentality and shift their attitude from me to we, that is the moment an individual becomes literally dangerous. Because now an individual is attached to purpose and mission. And when you have an individual that's attached to purpose and mission, it's not too many things that's going to stop them. You see, my football career ended, but my reason for why I lived my life, it never did. I just had a paralyzed right arm and hand. My mentality wasn't paralyzed. My spirit wasn't paralyzed. My drive wasn't paralyzed. My dedication wasn't, my commitment wasn't, I was the same man. I just had an extra boost of energy for why I lived my life. I wear this as a badge of honor.
See, I believe the most powerful force in the world is to be consistent with the thoughts, ideas, concepts, and beliefs you hold to be true about yourself. And that is what identity is. Identity is the governor on every single area of your life. It literally sets the temperature for all of the conditions of your life. Shakespeare has this incredible quote that says, we know what we are, but not what we may be. And the who you may be is going to be dictated by your ability to alter your identity, because you are going to always be consistent with what you believe you're worth and what you believe you deserve, or what is your identity. Your identity, the best analogy I could give you, is like a thermostat sitting on the wall of your life. It sets the entire temperature for the conditions of your life in multiple areas. And so most people think their life is dictated by external circumstances. They spend their entire life trying to control what is outside of them. You've all heard the great saying that people in 12-step programs talk about learning to control the things they can and letting go of the things that they can't control. And the fact of the matter is you cannot always control the external factors that are impacting you in your life. The good news is it's the external things in your life that do not dictate the direction or the ultimate destination of your life. That is a fallacy. Listen to me when I tell you this. External circumstances do not dictate the ultimate destination of your life. It's an internal game. You and your faith, your God, are what will control the direction of your life, not the external things that are impacting you all the time. And this identity is that internal thermostat. It sets the temperature, just like a thermostat sitting on the wall, of the conditions of your entire life. Let me give you an example of how the thermostat of our lives works. The best analogy I could give you is exactly how one works in the room I'm sitting in. It sets the temperature of the room. And so the external conditions don't impact the internal temperature of this room, because that thermostat regulates the condition of the room.
The most basic answer, I'm sorry it's so simple, but it's true, it's fear. You know, people making this complex process, this woman was telling me that I don't understand why they don't do this, why I feel this way. I said, it's called fear. Everybody's afraid we're not enough. Everybody's afraid we're not rich enough, smart enough, young enough, quick enough, fast enough. It's human nature. But the secret is to do it anyway. I know that sounds so simplistic. My work when I'm working with somebody is showing them how to condition themselves, like building a muscle, so that you take action first automatically. Because if you don't do that, it's hard. You lose momentum. It's like, how do I get started? Where do I go? And I tell people, throw a rock, wherever it drops, start there. The next person walks by, I go, you're the first person after the rock. Do anything to start the process of moving forward rather than let fear stop you. If somebody is, we were mentioning earlier, if somebody is really stressed out, they're not stressed out for no reason. It's because they're focusing on something that makes them feel stressed. They often, when they're focusing on it, it changes the body. You start to feel tight. You start to feel a certain way. And then they use language like, I don't know what to do. Why am I so overwhelmed? So 3 things control how you feel every moment. What you focus on, what you do with your body. If your shoulders are down, if you're breathing like, oh, it's not hard to figure out. You're not going to be in a very resourceful state. If I take that same person and I change their body radically, I get them to talk at a different tempo. I get them to move their body differently. I've taught this for, 41 years. 3 years ago at Harvard, they did a study on power postures where they showed that if you stand like this with your hands on your hips like Superman or Wonder Woman, or if you lean back like this, like the guy is obnoxious at the office and do this, it literally changes your testosterone by 25% within 2 minutes. It reduces cortisol, which you know is the stress hormone, by 30%, and you're 33% more likely to take an action. So if we change what we focus on, if we change the way we use our body, if we change our language patterns, we'll instantly feel different. Think of how do people use their body when they're worried versus when they're excited. If you learn to use your body first, use your focus first, you can literally change how you feel in moments. And then you develop new habits where you start to feel good all the time. And it isn't some phony fake pump up. It's literally the way you've conditioned your body. Just like being fit as an athlete, you want to be emotionally fit.
You know what you should do? Every time you get a chance to experience first class, you should do it because it plants a seed. It's like the next time you buy an airplane ticket, just ask for an upgrade. Pay a little extra money, fly first class. What it does is it conditions your mind. Once you get in first class and you see how wide the seats are, and you find out why they shut that curtain, see, because they shut that curtain because they can't let you see what's going on up there. They passing out hot nuts. Everybody get a washcloth. They got a menu. You get to decide what you want. All the drinks is free. Once you sit in first class one time, the next time you get on a plane, it's very difficult to walk past them seats. And then your mind starts thinking of ways to get back to first class. And guess what? That's what you start attracting to your life. And you start behaving and producing stuff to get you back into first class. That's how you move up. You just like buy you one really expensive outfit. Just see how it fits. That shit is high for a reason. Don't think they down there just putting prices on. Buy a really expensive pair of shoes, ladies. Buy a really expensive purse one time. Just go on down there, buy the real Louis Vuitton that ain't ever on sale. Louis Vuitton don't even have sales. Just get you one. When you carry it, it changes your life. It will then cause your mind to subconsciously produce thoughts to get another one. And next thing you know, you attract the thing you need to produce the outcome that you want. Life is all about the law of attraction.
So Andrew Carnegie said something very simple. See, I can keep my mind focused on something for 5 minutes at a stretch. 5 minutes. Can any of you do it? All the senators. They thought, what's the problem with 5 minutes? And he set up an experiment. They tried to keep their attention, they couldn't keep it for a few seconds. One moment here, one moment there, this is the fate of most human beings. So then he said, you should not be running United States. So, human ability, there's something called as chitta. There's a different… see, in English language, mind is mind. Largely you're considering the memory part of your mind as mind. In the yogic system, there are 4 main aspects of the mind. I'll not go into the detail, but the memory part of the mind is of least importance. It's the chitta, which is connected with the consciousness, which is most important. If you find a shape for your chitta, that shape will manifest always, because it's empowered by life-making material which for lack of words we're using the word consciousness, that which is the basis of life. Once your mind is yoked to that, then what shape your mind takes, mind is like a cloud, you can make it any shape. You can make it godlike, you can make it a devil out of it, you can make a pig out of it, you can make whatever out of it, you know? It's a nebulous thing. So what shape you give to your chitta, it will always manifest in the world because it's empowered by life-making energy behind it. So that is the most important aspect of the mind, not the memory. Memory is important to handle the material aspects.
This is the ticket. This is what we get caught up in. We want to use the head and heart together, and then we have the power of both of them. So to do that, though, we got to give up the expectation that people are going to behave the way we want them to. Because what are the chances? If your happiness is dependent upon everyone around you, your mother behaving the way you think she should, your father, your brother, your sister, your coworkers, your employees, what are the chances of everybody living the way you think they should? On a 0 to 100% scale, what are the chances? So why would we allow this to be? Because it's just a bad habit. And it's like my buddy Mike here with his daughter. Instead of trying to control her, he decides, I'm going to learn from her, I'm going to love her, I'm going to grow me. And that pulls her closer instead of pushing her further away. Instead of working on them, we're going to work on us. If I want to change you, the fastest way I can change you is change me, because we're in a cybernetic loop. If dad responds totally different than she can predict, she doesn't know how to deal with that anymore, now you have the upper hand. Now your love can penetrate her instead of the story in each other's minds. When he was talking to me on that first day about her, he was in his head. How many saw that? And then he left his head and got in his heart, and that's when he penetrated her. And look at mom over here smiling from ear to ear, going, nodding her head, going, yeah, that's cool. And look at Mike's big smile on his face, because he can feel the difference. So today we want to do our best to catch ourselves in our head, to get back in our heart. And then here's the biggest thing you need. You don't want to make the assumption that says, no, I've done 3 days and I'm done. This is the beginning, not the end. Who's with me on this? Say aye. Now, it doesn't have to be the beginning with me. If you want to do more with me, come to Master University. Or you can go do it with someone else, but you got to keep growing. If you don't keep growing, none of this will matter. And you can have tremendous few months or half a year or a year, but why would you settle for 6 months because you went to the program? I remember one time I had a friend years ago, really good friend of mine, and he came to this seminar, and he loved it. And he was on fire, and he went back, and he lost 32 pounds, and he changed his business, got closer to his wife, and then he ran into some challenges in one of his business, had 2 businesses, one of his businesses, and then their kid had some challenges, and he and his wife got stressed about it, and they started being stressed with each other in reaction to the environment. And so, it was like 6, 7, 8 months in, and I remember him saying, hey, Tone, I love that seminar, but dude, it didn't last. It was great for 6 months. I said, asshole. I said, who made you think you could do something for 3 days and it would even last 6 months? I said, do you think I just did 3 days and I've been this way for the last 40? No, I said 40 years ago I started a journey that has never ended. And so we need a daily practice, right? Who's up for it here? Say aye. And so I want to show you how I do this for me, and I want you to create your own system based on it. So if you and I are going to get lasting results, you got to do some things regularly. The first thing, and I call this immersion coaching, the first thing that I do still myself is I schedule myself at least twice a year, sometimes 3 times a year, to go to an event of some sort where I can make myself better psychologically, emotionally, relationship, finances, something. I call it an event blast off, because most people learn a language in high school and college. Who learned a language in high school and college? Let me see your hands. How many of you don't speak a fucking word of it now? Let me see your hands. What happened? You spent years, but you did it 1 hour a day, 5 days a week. Immersion is the way to learn. When you're breathing like we're doing here all night, all day, it's not comfortable, but it's unbelievably fulfilling. How many are experiencing it right now? Say aye. You got to get over your mind going, I can't do this, it's too hard and all that shit. You got to push yourself through when you feel exhausted and say, there's a second wind in me, I'm going to find it. But if you go for immersion, you will master things 10 times faster than you will doing an hour a day or once a week or something like that. I mean, think about it. This seminar is 50 hours of the course of the weekend, 4 days. It's a lot of hours. I can make this so much easier. Let's do an hour a week for a year. We'll get 2 weeks off. It'll be easy. Would we get the same result? Yes or no? No way. So I'll give you an example. My wife and I, and we have an extended family member of mine named Mary, and Mary, the 3 of us travel together. Mary's my right arm. And so I drag Mary with us too, because she's part of our family. We just recently finished A Date with Destiny, which is my most powerful seminar. It's 6 days and nights, and it's an experience of some grads of A Date with Destiny. Cool. But it's one of my favorite things to do on earth, but it's not an easy thing on my body, as you might imagine. And it's incredibly fulfilling, but at the end of it, my body is complete toast, as you can imagine. And we were in Australia, in the Gold Coast, and I scheduled already some Aussies here, huh? Nice to see you guys. And I scheduled, because my life was so full, there was only 1 week I could do this, and so I scheduled to go to this place in Sedona, Arizona, where this man for 39 years has been a neurological expert about how to wire your brain for alpha states, delta states, if you're familiar with those. But alpha is the expertise. And I want to, as great as my life is, I want to take another level. So I have more to give for my family, for my friends, for you, for myself. So we go for 7 days and nights. And this is what it was like. You got up first thing in the morning, 6:30, and you spent an hour and a half getting your brain wired with this glue shit. And they put like 180 of these electrodes on your head. My wife looked so attractive, and so did I. It was amazing. And then, after wiring you up with this goop, which by the way takes forever to get out afterwards, well, there's where we don't see the goop, you see just our hair afterwards. But the bottom line is, we go in, then you go in individual rooms. Like, I want to be with my family, right? I want to be with my wife, I want to be with my family, and I got to go in this dark little room that has no light, and and it's freezing cold. It must be my karma for the shit I do to you people on a regular basis, right? And sure enough, I'm there for 14 hours in this room. You get one break, sometimes two, run the restroom, and the entire time you are learning to think, and how you think, these electrodes create sounds. And you learn how to put yourself in the zone of alpha. But it's a bitch. It's horrible. I wouldn't recommend it to anybody that wants easy experiences, but I'd recommend it to anybody that wants to grow immensely. And by the first day, I'm like, who do I got to shoot to get out of this thing? Oh, it's me. I'm the one that did this shit. Right? But by the end of the week, all three of us were able to go into this state of alpha. And if you're familiar with alpha, the best way I can describe alpha is there's no problem that can't be solved in alpha. Because every problem that we have was created by us. Destruction of the environment to the pissed offness that you may have. And since we create the problems, any problem a human creates, we can solve. But you can't do it with the same level of thinking that got you there. So there's a science of it, and you can't cheat. This thing measures you. And then you take this frickin' test with 300 questions 3 times a day, the same effing test. And it takes forever. And while you're answering it, these electrodes are seeing what you're doing. And then the guy sits down with you, it's called sigmas, and he goes, well, this is 2 sigma, this is even, this is 10 sigmas. And the more sigmas is how far you are off from what you wrote, from what was really going on in your nervous system. So it's like, said something to me like that I was demanding. I'm like, what the fuck? I'm not demanding. What are you talking about, right? But I guess I was, right? And you learn then how to let go of those old patterns, create new ones. So my point is, I'm doing okay in my life. I'm not exactly hurting. I'm having the most beautiful life I could possibly have. A beautiful mission, a beautiful family, beautiful children, grandchildren, beautiful experience to live in life. And yet I'm not willing to settle for that because I'm here to deliver more for everyone I love, including myself. And so what I do is I schedule it. Because listen to me, when you talk about shit, it's a dream. When you envision it, it's exciting. When you plan it, it's possible. When you schedule it, it's real.